Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It was so nice in the first half to sit out and listen. And one of the things that I think has just been so interesting is the interconnectedness of the conversations that we're having, although they're across different industries. So let's jump right in. I'm going to talk about education and just some of the things that I see and we've been seeing as we shift. And like many of the other presenters, I'll talk a lot about the pandemic. Specifically, I think in healthcare, it impacted them uniquely, and in education, it did the same. So one of the things that we want to take into account when we think about education is that learning has changed. We know a lot more about learning than we ever did. How we learn, where we learn has changed in many ways, but in many ways it has not. It has not changed much. And so one of the things that I'll be talking about is what will education look like in the next 30 years? It will be radically different because the levers forcing change are stronger than ever. One of the things I think about often, and I'm not sure why, but it connects to my love of technology and my experience, is that in 1989, when I graduated from high school, a computer class was added to our graduation requirement, which was cutting edge at the time. And in that class, we were learning to write basic code. And the most exciting thing I remember doing with my programming skills at the time was to make a rocket ship made of asterisks and ampersands move slowly up the screen. And then you think about since 1989, the size, power, and use of a computer has changed drastically. The use of technology and the definition of a computer has expanded to every facet of our economy and every single industry. Everybody who's talked today have talked about technology. We hold computers in our hands, most of you have them with you today, that far exceed the power of the computer I learned on in the late 1980s. And while many things in education have changed because of technology, as well as the social norms that have changed because of technology, here are some things to think about. The number of homeschooled kids increased from 5.4 to 11.1. This is before the pandemic. During the pandemic, the number of homeschooled children increased 63%. Now, in this last year, the number of high school seniors choosing non-traditional online schools have doubled. So innovative schools like Arizona State and Western Governors are seeing growth in enrollment, while many schools across the country are seeing declines in enrollment. Coursera, which many of you may know or taking classes on, is an online training website, and they offer classes from the University of Michigan and Michigan State. Their registration in the last year has increased 24%. The last one I'll talk about is Guild Education. Guild Education is a collaborator that works between colleges and universities, as well as different industries and different companies like Walmart, Starbucks. And what they do at Guild Education is help employers match their employees to educational opportunities. They have served this year 310,000 student employees, which is a 60% annual increase. Now again, I'll repeat, many of these changes were taking place way before the pandemic. Maybe a little bit slower, but they were taking place. The pandemic was an accelerator that solidified a changing social contract regarding the role of education. It also changed the expectations regarding education. Now, don't get me wrong, the power of education is undeniable, and the strong public education system in the United States with our innovative research systems is still a shining example and an envy of the world in our global economy. Technological, social, and pandemic lessons will change education to be the nimble and responsive economic and social force it has been in the past. The future of education will be more digital, more custom, and more skill-based. I love the custom part because that was mentioned in the healthcare presentation as well. So let me ask you a question. How many of you have taught yourself something on Google or YouTube? Or Wikipedia? I'm an educator, but I'm not ashamed of that, right? So if you can Google facts and information, what will education become? That's a rhetorical question, but it's a question that we've been asking ourselves. It's a question that has become more louder and more pronounced. I think about my years as a PTA mom and raising money for iPads and Promethean boards to put in the classrooms. And we want to bring technology to the classroom. But what about technology taking the classroom anywhere in the world? What about learning not taking place in a classroom or even in a building? Right now, there are 36 million adults who have some college but no degree. The future classrooms will be the front seat of a minivan as a parent waits for their kid to come out of volleyball practice and completes a lesson for their bachelor's degree. Future classrooms will be on the manufacturing floors and in hospital rooms with a mobile device to test knowledge live and help learners reflect on what they are doing in real time. Digital learning will be a daily reflection at an internship or an apprenticeship, a modern apprenticeship, with an instructor providing feedback from anywhere in the world or someplace in a different state. The future of education will include the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning for computers to adapt to learners' current knowledge and scaffold the concepts and problems as they learn. In addition, the future of education will allow learners to practice risky and dangerous skills using simulation, 3D, and virtual reality. Because of technology and teaching innovation, the concept of time will be suspended and unbundled as the basis of education. Education will be less structured on the academic school year and the definitions of elementary school, primary school, secondary school, and post-secondary school. We will even move beyond our thinking in regards to K-12 and K-14 ideals. And we will think about learning, and the learner. The mass production philosophy behind K-12 will be dismantled, and the elite path of higher education will allow it to finally serve as the democratizer that public education has delivered to previous generations. I often joke with my colleagues about our first jobs. My first job was at McDonald's, and I'm very proud of that. You learn to, if you can lean, you can clean. You learn to multitask. You learn customer service there. And we reminisce about all those work ethic things you learn on your first job. So if we think about many entrepreneurs and some of our best leaders across the country, they learned how by selling Girl Scout cookies and Boy Scout popcorn and building robots on the robotics team, building a business in junior achievement, speaking in front of their congregation, or playing a sport. The interpersonal skills, the critical thinking, the planning and teamwork are hard skills learned by doing. These skills, along with skills learned in a professional trade, are converging with the computer programming skills that we all are required to learn. That was cutting edge for me in 1989. Thinking about cars, and as in a motor city, cars have more technology in them today than many of our phones and the computers on our desks. And those other skills like data analytics, advanced software skills, as well as marketing, social media, video production, and app development have become competitive expectations in the workplace. Skills have always been a currency in our economy, but as information becomes more readily available, lifelong learners need to curate the skills that build the careers and the lives that they want. Educators must understand that skills are the value and build systems. We must build systems that teach skills and allow learners to practice. To be or not to be, attending college or studying the humanities. Debating education and liberal arts isn't the question. The future will include a system that embraces the skills obtained in writing and philosophy classes as much as professional pathways. High school systems are designing modern apprenticeship programs and competency-based learning pathways for young students. The future of education will embrace the workplace and humanities. Shop floors and offices will become active learning labs. Right now, high school students are successfully completing college courses and degrees during high school instead of and with advanced placement courses. And in addition to a more custom, digital, and skill-based education future, the future of education will also be more personalized, more adaptive, more responsive, more equitable, more global, and much more inclusive. In response to physical and learning needs, many school systems are inclusive of all learners' needs today. As we know more today about how people learn, environments that embrace neurodiversity, all abilities as well as cultural and ethnic diversity are a requirement and will be an expectation as we move forward. Families expect inclusive learning environments. One of the most important expectations of the future will be education systems free of achievement gaps. This means that curriculum will be more adaptive, and not solely to embrace all learners, but to be responsive to the changing needs and expectations of the workplace and our economy. The global economy is more interconnected and more interconnected every day. Therefore, a global perspective must be embedded in all of our learning experiences. Industries like gaming and anime and comics, fashion and entertainment are all full of young, vibrant, and industrious young people who are designing products produced in factories around the world. Podcasters who have taught themselves or learned from others make millions annually on merchandising their niche brands, running YouTube channels, and serving as ambassadors for key global brands. My son intrigued me over the last decade, especially during the pandemic. He would, and many of you may have experienced this, sit in his room, play video games, and watch people playing video games, which to me was odd and weird and actually silly, and I thought my son was the only one who was doing it. But little did I know what was being created, what has been created, is a billion-dollar industry that has doubled in the last year called esports. And so my son starts to tell me about one of his classmates who took 2 years out of school to travel and run his own business, winning sports games and esports. He came back to school because at that point, he knew what he wanted to do and he knew the skills that he would need. Again, he created a pathway for the career that he wants to design for himself. That is the future of education. Since 2011, when I think about that story, I think about the fact that college enrollment has declined by 3.3 million students due to birth rates, new entrants in competing with higher education, but it's declining. Forces have been pushing change in education for a while, but even the promise of technology has not forced the type of changes expected in the past. So the question is, what will demand the level of change to education over the next 30 years? Changing demographics. We've talked about that earlier today. Changing demands and expectations of our new demographics, and completely changed generations. We are not currently dealing with millennials. Many of us joke about millennials. We're not just dealing with millennials as students. Millennials are parents, and they have changed the workplace. They forced us to embrace work from home, and they, along with 2 other unique generations, are making us all leverage technology finally to change social norms. So Generation Z, which was born between 1996 and 2010, is both in the workplace, college, and K-12, while Generation Alpha, which was born starting in 2011, are not yet in high school, although like the other generation, they spent key years of their education during a global pandemic. Last summer, my daughter spent some time at JP Morgan in an internship. And she complained, and she didn't want to be in a cubicle, she didn't want to be on Zoom. And at some point, I told her, I said, I'm not sure if you want to work. And at the end of the internship, she says to me, she said, Mom, I'm not sure you all are ready for my generation to come to work. And I agreed with her. I thought that was an astute observation. And then it made me think about the fact that not only are we not ready for them to come to work, we've not changed education to adapt to where we are at, technologically or socially. And so although we have all of the tools and technology to allow education to evolve and innovate, it is not at the speed of other sectors. But the demands for inclusion, technology, relevance, and purpose by new generations of students, citizens, parents, and professionals is strong. Millennials have required an examination of work-life balance. Generation Z has demanded inclusion on the campuses they select and the schools they attend. They want personalized experiences and global perspectives. Millennials, Generation Z, and Generation Alpha are not playing with technology. Sometimes we see them, we think they're checking out, they're not using technology, they're antisocial, but they desire meaningful connections and value in their relationships with people and all of their pursuits. Change in education has not kept pace with other industries and shifts, but the demand and need for change by new and growing forces will create a more custom, skill-based, and truly digital education system. Changes in education over the next 30 years will finally deliver the innovation that has been expected for and by generations. As an educator, I am very hopeful about the future. Technology has been there with us for a while, but I'm most hopeful because of the younger generation and the demands and expectations that they have for a different future. Thank you all so very much, and I look forward to talking to you later.